Hello, and welcome to Broadcasting Scotland. It's Friday the 20th of May. I'm Andrew Wilson, and this is Scotland at 7. This evening I have the latest daily update from Ukraine on day 86 of the illegal Russian invasion, and then I will take a look at today's headlines from Scotland and around the world. The Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said the Donbass, the basin of the River Don, where Russia is now concentrating its main effort, has been completely destroyed. There's hell, and that's not an exaggeration, he said in his nightly address. The bombing and shelling of other cities, the air and missile strikes of the Russian army, all this is not just hostilities during the war. Russia's Deputy Foreign Minister, Andriy Rudenko, said Russia would consider opening access to Ukraine's Black Sea ports only if sanctions against Russia were removed. This is in response to pleas from the UN Food Chief, David Beasley, who said millions will die around the world because of the Russian blockade of the ports. The US Congress has approved $40 billion in military and humanitarian aid to Ukraine, with both parties eagerly backing the latest effort to support an ally under Russian assault. Final passage came as Antony Blinken, the Secretary of State, said the US had authorized shipping Ukraine another $100 million worth of weapons and equipment from Pentagon stocks. Putin's youngest daughter, Katerina Tikhonova, flew to Munich in Germany more than 50 times between 2017 and 2019, travelling on chartered flights with full state support and with Russian Secret Service guards, according to an investigation by Germany's Spiegel magazine and the independent Russian media outlet iStories. Her apparent enthusiasm for Europe appears to match that of the oligarch scum and traitors her father has decried since the start of his war against the people of Ukraine. She is reported to have been living in Germany with the former director of the Munich State Ballet. Vadim Shishimarin, a 21-year-old tank commander, asked a Ukrainian widow to forgive him for the murder of her husband after pleading guilty on Wednesday to killing an unarmed 62-year-old civilian in the northeast Ukrainian village of Chupakivka on the 28th of February. Russia's promise to use lasers to shoot down drones in Ukraine has prompted widespread skepticism. President Zelensky described it as a Wunderwaffe, a non-existent wonder weapon that was originally a propaganda invention of the Nazis. The US President, Joe Biden, said Finland and Sweden meet every NATO requirement and then some to join the alliance and have the full, complete backing of the US. Speaking at a joint press conference at the White House with Sweden's Prime Minister Magdalena Andersson and Finland's President Sauli Niinistö, he also said he was confident Turkey's concerns regarding their membership could be addressed. In Germany, the Bundestag's Budgetary Committee has decided that the former German Chancellor, Gerhard Schröder, will lose some of his privileges after failing to cut his links with Russian energy companies over the Ukraine war. Schröder, the Chancellor from 1998 to 2005, will be stripped of his office and staff, which cost more than €400,000 of taxpayers' money in 2021. G7 financial leaders have agreed on $18.4 billion of aid to help Ukraine and said they were ready to stand by Kyiv and do more as needed, according to a draft communiqué seen by Reuters. Finance ministers and central bank governors of the US, Japan, Canada, the UK, Germany, France, and Italy are holding talks as Ukraine is now running out of cash. And more than 1 million Ukrainian refugees have already returned home, according to the country's ambassador to the UK, Vadim Prystaiko. He said the mayors of Kyiv and Kharkiv had to tell people not to return to the cities as they are still unsafe. Intense fighting has been reported around the Ukrainian city of Severodonetsk as Russian forces appear to be stepping up an offensive to encircle its Ukrainian defenders. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said the eastern provinces of Luhansk and Donetsk, known collectively as the Donbass, were being turned into hell, and warned that what he called the final stage of the war would be the bloodiest. In Donbass, the occupiers are trying to increase pressure. There's hell, and that's not an exaggeration, Zelensky said. The brutal and absolutely pointless bombing of Severodonetsk, 12 dead and dozens wounded in just one day, the bombing and shelling of other cities, the air and missile strikes of the Russian army, all this is not just hostilities during the war. According to multiple sources, Russian troops were pushing west of the Russian-occupied town of Popasna and also attempting to gain ground in the north of Severodonetsk, advancing more than 10 kilometers in at least one region with residents fleeing under shell fire. The focus of the main Russian advance appeared to be the town of Soledar, amid speculation that their initial aim was to cut one of the main supply routes to thousands of Ukrainian defenders who are outnumbered by Russian forces. Severodonetsk and the Ukrainian forces located there are particularly vulnerable, with Russian forces threatening from three sides, and the operation would put one of the remaining areas of the Luhansk region currently under Ukrainian control in jeopardy. According to the governor of Donetsk, Pavlo Kirilenko, the city of Bakhmut to the west of Popasna has been under constant airstrikes, with Russian troops approaching the town. Severodonetsk also came in under heavy attack. Its mayor, Alexander Stryuk, said 12 civilians had been killed in the past day and up to 15,000 civilians were sheltering in the city's bomb shelters. The Institute of War think tank reported intensifying Russian operations north and west of Popasna in preparation for an offensive towards Severodonetsk. The Ukrainian General Staff said 260 service personnel withdrawn from the Kharkiv city area had arrived to replace the significant combat losses. Phone intercepts of newly arrived Russian soldiers suggested they were shocked by the intensity of the fighting there, in comparison to what they had seen around Kharkiv. The First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, welcomed Michelle O'Neill MLA to Bute House in Edinburgh today. The meeting was arranged at the request of Michelle O'Neill. The First Minister today wrote to the other main political parties in Northern Ireland to make them aware of the meeting and to offer a similar engagement should they wish it. The meeting provided an opportunity to discuss shared areas of interest, including the current cost of living crisis, the importance of the Northern Ireland Protocol negotiated with the EU, and the prospects for the formation of a new Northern Ireland executive. The First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, said, "Today's meeting was an excellent opportunity to discuss some of the shared challenges Scotland and Northern Ireland face, and I thank Michelle for reaching out and enabling us to discuss these extremely important issues in person." It was particularly timely conversation, which provided an update on the ongoing developments around establishing the Northern Ireland Assembly and Executive following the elections earlier this month. We also discussed the Northern Ireland Protocol, most notably the extremely concerning announcement by the UK government that they intend to legislate to enable unilateral action to disapply parts of the protocol, and the incredibly damaging effects this would have in communities right across the UK. In a cost of living crisis and teetering on the edge of recession, pitching us into a trade dispute with the EU could be what tips us over. She continued, "Intergovernmental relations are essential when it comes to tackling shared challenges, and it is clear that much more needs to be done by the UK government to ensure a rapid and effective response to the devastating cost of living crisis that's facing households across these islands. No one should ever have to make the choice between heating and eating." She said, "Today's meeting was a further example of the close relationship between Scotland and Northern Ireland. In that spirit, I have written today to the leaders of the DUP and Alliance parties with an offer to meet to discuss these important issues." Ireland's Taoiseach has said it is unacceptable for one party in Northern Ireland to block others from taking power, as he visited Belfast to try to break the deadlock over the Brexit protocol and power sharing at Stormont. It is unheard of in a democratic world that the Parliament would not convene in the aftermath of an election. We can't have a situation where one political party determines that the other political parties can't convene in a parliament, Michael Martin said today, before meetings with party leaders, including the Democratic Unionist Party, which has refused to re-enter power sharing until decisive action is taken to scrap elements of the Northern Ireland Protocol. He said he understood there were legitimate issues to be discussed with the DUP, but that the only answer to the problem was collaboration, not confrontation. Mr. Martin accused Boris Johnson of moving too far in a unilateral way over the UK's approach to Northern Ireland after the Foreign Secretary Liz Truss announced plans to introduce domestic laws to override the protocol if the EU did not meet the government's demands. He also said claims the EU was being intransigent and inflexible were exaggerated. I spoke to Boris Johnson and I have to nail this. This idea that somehow the European Union is being inflexible on this is just not the truth. It doesn't stack up. He continued, what has happened now is a certain unilateralism on behalf of the British government, saying our way or no way. And you don't negotiate with the European Union on that basis, particularly when you have signed off on the agreement that you now don't like. One of Joe Biden's closest allies is due to arrive in London on Saturday as part of an influential US congressional delegation seeking to calm tensions over Northern Ireland. The 9-strong delegation includes Democratic and Republican delegates from the House of Representatives and Senate, including members of the powerful Ways and Means Committee, chaired by Richard Neal, who will lead the group. The group landed in Brussels earlier today for a series of meetings, including with the European Commission's Vice President and Brexit Commissioner, Maroš Šefčovič, to kick off a 6-day trip that will also take in Dublin, Kerry and Belfast. They will travel to London for Saturday meetings with the Foreign Secretary Liz Truss, the International Trade Secretary Anne-Marie Trevelyan, the Labour leader Keir Starmer, and Nick Thomas-Symonds, the Shadow International Trade Secretary. Neil has also requested a meeting with Boris Johnson, and while nothing is scheduled, he said he was hopeful talks with the Prime Minister could still be arranged. The delegation's arrival is seen as a significant intervention by the US, which is acting as co-guarantor of the 1998 Good Friday or Belfast Agreement. Neil has already made his displeasure known over the government's plan to draft legislation to remove parts of the Northern Ireland Protocol from the Brexit Treaty, despite warnings it could risk a full trade war with the EU. Alongside Neil on the trip are Republicans Kevin Brady, Mike Kelly, Vern Buchanan and David Joyce, and Democrats Ron Kind, Dan Kildee and Mary Gay Scanlon. After London, the delegation will travel to Dublin to meet the Irish leaders and to Belfast to meet Sinn Féin leaders and the DUP leader Sir Geoffrey Donaldson, whom Neil has met on many occasions. Their arrival coincides with a warning by Ireland's Deputy Prime Minister Leo Varadkar that the British position on Brexit was causing such divisions in Northern Ireland it would backfire and weaken the Union. The delegation will also visit Ventry in Kerry, the birthplace of Neil's maternal family, the Garveys, to meet an agricultural delegation that will be travelling to the Eastern States Exposition to be held in West Springfield, Massachusetts in September. The SNP has hit out at the Brexit Freedoms Bill, warning it will damage workers' rights and trigger a race to the bottom on employment conditions. The bill, which the UK government has excluded the Scottish government from the conversation around yet again, could be set to heap more post-Brexit damage on Scotland, a nation that voted overwhelmingly against it. The SNP's Fair Work and Employment spokesperson, Chris Stevens MP, said the bill was at odds with the government's levelling up strategy and called for its immediate withdrawal. The SNP tabled amendments to the recent Queen's Speech legislation seeking to introduce better employment protections, and which they say were necessary to oppose UK government attempts to undermine Scotland. Commenting, Chris Stevens MP said, "The so-called Brexit Freedoms Bill in reality presents a dangerous attack on all workers in the UK and would undoubtedly trigger an ugly race to the bottom on standards and employment conditions. It is utterly at odds with the government's plans to level up and grow Britain. It will do the exact opposite, and all at the expense of ordinary, hard-working people. It shows the warped priorities of the UK government that at a time of economic fear and hardship, they'd prioritise a damaging Brexit bill over the employment bill they promised years ago and are yet to make any progress on. This is something Scotland neither wants nor voted for, and yet Scottish workers are set to be once again shafted by the callous Conservatives in their pursuit of an ideological hard Brexit. Rather than focus on Dickensian attacks on workers, the UK government should focus on tackling the cost of living crisis by bolstering workplace security and employment conditions by delivering on the employment bill that is desperately needed now." He went on, "If they won't, and they press ahead with yet another attack on devolution, ignoring the will of the people of Scotland along the way on Brexit, it will prove once again that only with the full powers of independence can we protect Scottish workers from the Tories." With the Sue Gray report expected next week, Boris Johnson has now shaken up his Number 10 operation in response to criticism of its oversight in the interim report, with new powers now handed to the Civil Service Chief, Samantha Jones. The Prime Minister is among about 30 people to have been given a gist of the criticism about him, with those contacted by the inquiry team given a few days to respond. Sue Gray is said to be keen to name senior civil servants, but no decisions have been made or taken on how many or who will be identified, or whether the report will contain any photos. Boris Johnson denied Number 10 would try to block names being released, saying it was entirely up to Ms Gray whom to identify in her report. I'm looking forward very much to seeing what she has to say, and fingers crossed that it will be pretty soon next week," Johnson told Sky News. Ahead of the report, Johnson tried to address criticisms of his operation with a new structure that puts Jones, the interim permanent secretary at Number 10, in charge of key units on national security and legislation, in addition to her existing portfolio. The interim report, published in January, said there were failures of leadership and judgment that had allowed rule-breaking gatherings to take place in Number 10. The full report is expected in about a week's time. The reorganisation announcement comes the day after Scotland Yard's Operation Hillman ended, after issuing 126 fixed penalties to 83 people. Number 10 confirmed only one fine was handed to the Prime Minister for attending a party in honour of his birthday in June 2020, when indoor mixing was banned. Under the shake-up, the government announced changes that will enhance the support that is offered to the Prime Minister and to the Cabinet. The Cabinet Office will be split into two, with domestic policy oversight, national security, and legislative units handed to Number 10 under Jones. The remaining Cabinet Office functions, including Whitehall changes and civil service administration, will remain under the Cabinet Office Permanent Secretary, Alex Chisholm. A government spokesperson said, "As we set out earlier in the year, steps are being taken to further strengthen the operation of both Number 10 and the Cabinet Office, so they are best placed to deliver for the public now and in the future. Work to deliver these plans is ongoing." The Conservative MP Ian Duncan Smith, a former party leader, said Johnson lost control of what was happening in Downing Street during the pandemic after an awful lot of civil servants were caught up in the Met investigation. There is anger within the civil service about how the Partygate saga has ended up, with many junior officials getting fines and more senior staff seeming to have avoided blame. Dozens of Sri Lankan Tamil refugees who have been detained for more than 7 months at a military base on an overseas territory claimed by the UK have gone on hunger strike in despair at their plight. The 42 hunger strikers are part of a group of 89 Sri Lankans, including 20 children, whose boat was intercepted and escorted to Diego Garcia in the middle of the Indian Ocean by the UK military after running into distress while apparently headed to Canada from India in October. Diego Garcia is part of the Chagos Islands, which a UN court has ruled were unlawfully detached from Mauritius by the UK when it granted Mauritius independence in 1968. The UK, which calls the archipelago British Indian Ocean Territory, has refused to cede sovereignty over the islands. The UK law firm Lee Day, which is representing 81 of the Sri Lankans, says since their arrival on Diego Garcia, which is now home to a US military base, the group have had very limited contact with the outside world and for the first 6 weeks were held without being able to communicate with anyone. They are being kept in a tented compound away from the island facilities and are understood to have made clear to the authorities that they are seeking international protection, but no steps appear to have been taken to allow individuals to claim asylum. Lee Day has written 3 letters to the Foreign Secretary and the British Indian Ocean Territory Commissioner, saying that returning the group to Sri Lanka could put them at risk of serious harm and would be incompatible with the UK's obligations under domestic and international law. It further says that refusing to allow them to communicate regularly with the outside world, including family members and their legal team, is unlawful. The latest letter, sent this week, says, "Our clients feel increasingly desperate at the conditions they are enduring on Diego Garcia and the lack of any apparent progress towards finding a solution for them. They have been given no information about how, when, or where they will be afforded the opportunity to claim international protection, how long they are to be kept on the island, where they might be sent, and or when, if ever, their conditions might improve. We remind you that the group includes victims of torture and 20 children, many of whom are under the age of 10. The mental state of many of our clients can best be described as utterly despairing." Sri Lanka's civil war ended with the defeat of the militant Tamil separatist group, widely known as the Tamil Tigers, in 2009. But human rights organisations and the UN have reported an escalation of the harassment, surveillance, and arbitrary detentions of, and land seizures from, Tamils over the past 2 years. Health boards are to share £2 million to deliver annual health checks for all people with learning disabilities. The new service will help to address health inequalities and ensure that people in this group are able to have any health issues identified and treated as quickly as possible. Health checks will be delivered in the local community. The Mental Wellbeing Minister Kevin Stewart said, "Unfortunately, we know that people with learning disabilities can experience poorer health than the rest of the population. Evidence suggests that people in this group are twice as likely to die from preventable illness. This is clearly unacceptable, and I hope these annual checks will help to address this and begin to reduce this health inequality." Health issues like respiratory disorders, diabetes, and thyroid problems can become serious if picked up too late. But if they are detected and treated early, there's a much better chance of a positive outcome and a good quality of life. That is where these annual health checks will be so valuable. Eddie McConnell, the Chief Executive of Down Syndrome Scotland, said, "This is a really significant moment in the lives of people with learning disabilities and their families. The rollout of the annual health checks across Scotland has the potential to be a game changer in improving the health outcomes for this community who deserve equal access to good health. It is no exaggeration to say that a well-implemented annual health check could save lives. The community learning disability nurse Sharon Bandine, who has an adult son with Down syndrome, said, "The new health checks are a welcome additional layer of good health practice for people with learning disabilities in Scotland. It is so important that everyone living with a learning disability has equal access to health checks, no matter where they live in Scotland." The Children's Minister Claire Haughey has written an open letter to encourage more people to consider fostering. Currently, around 500 additional foster families are required to provide stable and nurturing homes for children who cannot be looked after at home. Further information on fostering can be found on local authority websites or the Fostering Network's website. Around a third of children in Scotland who are unable to live at home are cared for in fostering families. Some need care for a short time, some need regular periods of care, and some need to be fostered throughout their childhood. Around 4,467 children and young people were placed in foster care in 2021. Ms. Haughey said, "Fostering is an amazing experience. I know this because I grew up in a family that fostered and fully appreciate the positive benefits of what a loving fostering environment can do to improve the lives of children and young people. All children are different, and we are looking for new foster carers from a variety of backgrounds and with different life experiences, skills, and qualities to help meet the needs of our young people. I know that deciding to foster is a big step, and I am asking people to carefully consider whether they could provide the love and stability that some of our children and young people need." Ian Wilson, who with wife Anita has been a foster carer for 22 years, said that fostering is part of their lives and their birth children's lives. "Fostering is not always easy, but there are so many kids out there who need a home and an adult who will be there for them and commit to them." Mr. Wilson went on, "Fostering is certainly not a one-size-fits-all, but when you're sure of your reasons for wanting to foster and have the facilities to be able to, why wouldn't you? It's about giving young people the time, space, and ability to blossom into the people they want to become." And the local MSP Shirley Ann Somerville and local MP Douglas Chapman have hailed the news that Dunfermline is to be awarded city status. Dunfermline was one of 39 towns in the running to win city status in a competition to mark Her Majesty the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. Commenting, Shirley Ann Somerville MSP said, "I'm absolutely delighted that Dunfermline is to be awarded city status. This will be a real boost to the local community and particularly to our local businesses. We have such a proud history in Dunfermline, and rightly so. This gives us a fantastic opportunity to tell our story locally, nationally, and internationally, and I pay tribute to everyone who has worked so hard to get us to this point." Also commenting, Douglas Chapman MP said, "After years of championing Dunfermline's case for formal city status, I'm delighted to see it's now been awarded, and now everyone connected with Dunfermline can genuinely say, we are a city. This is a huge victory for our wider area too, and for everyone who takes pride in Dunfermline's rich history, culture, and heritage. It also comes at an exciting time for West Fife, as our constituency continues to grow and evolve, and is fast becoming one of Scotland's most significant areas for economic growth. I'm grateful to everyone involved in preparing Dunfermline's city status bid, and I know the submission was powerful and compelling. My personal thanks go to our councillors who backed the bid and to everyone who supported it. This is an achievement beyond our wildest dreams," he continued, "and today we become Scotland's eighth city, and we can all feel as proud as the Dunfermline peacock." That's a reference by Douglas to the peacocks who live in Pittencrieff Park and who now have the freedom of the city of Dunfermline. And that And that was our final item this evening. In making these programs, I'm sorry, I'm being told to stop and to check for a late breaking story. If you'll bear with me for a moment, I'll try and find that for you. Uh, 15 minutes ago, the Twitter account for Nicola Sturgeon tweeted that unfortunately I have tested positive for COVID this evening after experiencing mild symptoms. In line with Scottish Government guidance, I'll work from home over the next few days and hopefully I'll be back out and about later next week. And with that late breaking item, that was our final item this evening. In making these programmes, Broadcasting Scotland relies on the support of viewers and others who value our distinctive approach to news, current affairs and culture. Please help us to continue to make these programmes, to continue to develop the station, and to make new programmes for you. If you would like to support us, then please consider subscribing or donating to Broadcasting Scotland. You will find the link to do that on the screen now. It looks like last week's challenge has been met, so thank you to everyone who has helped. However, the need for financial support has not gone away. There are other ways in which you can contribute to our work. If you would like to volunteer to work with Broadcasting Scotland, either behind the scenes or in front of the cameras, or in any other way that helps our work and promotes the station, then please visit our website at www.broadcastingscotland.scot and send us a message there. You can also find us on Facebook by searching for Broadcasting Scotland and on Twitter at BroadcastScot. Meantime, Leslie will be here at 12 on Sunday at 12 noon with the full Scottish, so please tune in and join her then. So that's the way it is at very nearly Scotland at 7:32. Thank you to everyone who has been watching this weekend. I hope that you have a great weekend and can join us again soon here on Broadcasting Scotland. Bye-bye.